They say this one has a surprise ending. I'll just need your credit card. Unbreakable stars Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson, Robin Wright Penn, and is directed by M. Night Shyamalan. So what's up, guys? If you remember, I recently put out my Split review, and I am in a major M. Night Shyamalan mood now. And it's great to be in this position because it's been a long time since I've been in this mood. And I remember when this guy put out his first few movies, I couldn't get enough of it, you couldn't get enough of it, everybody couldn't get enough of it. And more importantly, Omar Okanovic couldn't get enough of it. Omar is a good friend on Killer Flicks. He's also the lead singer of a band called Ghost of April. He's a good friend, and he is possibly the biggest M. Night Shyamalan fan I've ever met. And I wanted to go ahead and review this movie because I just got through watching it. Wasn't originally planning on reviewing it, but M. Night just has a way with endings. Be it a twist, be it an emotional impact, be it whatever. The guy knows how to end on a high note, and I was just elated when Unbreakable ended. And I've seen this movie before, but every time I watch it, it's like watching it for the first time again. And so I had to go to the Drumdums Evil Lair and get a review out. So here we go. Now, just so you guys know, this will be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen Unbreakable, you might not want to watch this. So you've been warned. Now, M. Night's first movie, The Sixth Sense, is more of a horror movie. Whereas Unbreakable, it's not a horror movie at all. It's more on the graphic novel side, maybe comic book side, but it's told in a much different way, a more dramatic way than, you know, your conventional comic book movies. And that is to its benefit. So Unbreakable is about David Dunn, played by Bruce Willis. And the beginning of the movie, it grabs your attention immediately because he is on this train, and then there's this train accident, and he is the only survivor. But the kicker is, he walks away completely unscathed. Not a scratch, not a mark, not a break, not a bruise, anything. Elijah Price, played by Samuel L. Jackson, he is on the lookout for superhumans. He was born with a condition where his bones break very easily. So he figures if I am at one end of the spectrum, then there has to be somebody on the other end of the spectrum. And so that is what Unbreakable is about. Throughout the rest of the movie, Bruce Willis is dealing with this issue of immortality or being really unbreakable. And really a key element to this that's not discussed that much is David Dunn's son, Joseph Dunn. Joseph, like any boy, idolizes his father, and after he finds out about this train crash, even more so, he genuinely thinks his father is a superhero and is persistent, constantly pushing his father to eventually believing that he himself is a superhero. And really that's the fun of this movie. It's the discovery. Not good guys taking on bad guys. No, it's the hero eventually finding out that he is, in fact, a hero, a superhero. And I think that nails down what is so great about this movie that isn't usually covered in comic book movies. Most superheroes probably wouldn't even know they're superheroes because everybody lives these mundane lives. How often are we faced with evil and crime? So more than likely, we're probably never going to see our powers on display. And that's what this movie addresses. David was in a car accident earlier in his life, and that's when he got the first taste of, hey, I might be a superhero. But the train crash really sets the story in motion. Now let's talk about M. Night Shyamalan for a bit. After watching Unbreakable, it made me realize how much of a genius behind the camera M. Night is. Look no further than the first quarter of this movie. I love the scene where the doctor is going over the accident with Bruce Willis and telling him that you don't have any scratches, any bruises whatsoever. And just look at the camera in that scene. It is just set still. You see the torso of a victim, and then there are just all these different layers before we finally see Bruce Willis and the doctor. And I'm not gonna lie, that scene kind of reminded me of a John Carpenter-ish type direction. Letting the camera sit still and letting the action unfold in front of it instead of the camera following the action. Not to say that M. Night doesn't do that. He does do that from time to time, but I think he takes every scene, breaks it apart, and figures out the best way to shoot the scene. And I think that's a big problem that a lot of directors today don't utilize. Carpenter was a master of this. His motto was, keep it simple. And that's really what M. Night did with this movie. And I think that works to the benefit of the movie because if the scene and the story and the script work, you don't need the camera to move all around to make the scene interesting. Just let the scene unfold in front of the camera. Also, another great arc in this story is David and Audrey. At the beginning, you can tell that there is this massive strain in the relationship, but it never really addresses, concretely what the problem is. But in the end, you kind of figure out that Bruce Willis has always struggled with his condition, and everything around him suffers because of that, including his marriage. And so by the end of the movie, when he comes to grips with who he is, he comes to grips with his relationship. And I think it's just a beautiful arc, really. Another aspect of M. Night's direction I love is subtlety. There is just this calm with his direction, and I think if you watch his movies, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The script in his movies, it's really simple. He gets right down to the point. His scripts aren't wordy, and it really works because he saves all that drama for the final act. And I think by keeping the first and even the second act, or at least just having this constant build throughout the movie, it makes the third act that much more effective. Also, I have to talk about the score by James Newton Howard. Unbreakable is a shining example of how effective a score can benefit a movie. I mean, can you imagine Unbreakable without that score? It's really iconic. And what's great about it is really it's so emotional. And I think that's another thing that sets this movie apart from other comic book films. It's a really emotional story. I would even go further and say if you're dealing with somebody that doesn't like comic book films, let them watch Unbreakable, because I'm sure that they will not see this really as a full-on comic book film. It's more of a drama, really. There is action in it, very little, but the action really is there to serve a purpose. It's not there just for action's sake. Now let's talk about the twist at the end, which I thought was brilliant. Throughout the whole movie, Elijah Price is in search of David Dunn, but we never know his ultimate motivation. We never know what he went through to find David Dunn, and then in that final act, that quote-unquote twist, Elijah Price actually was the cause of all this destruction and death and everything in order to find David Dunn. And I've watched interviews with Shyamalan, and he really doesn't like that word twist. In his mind, the twist is really the character's lack of information, and the twist being they find out that information. So guys, in the end, I gotta give Unbreakable a Trapped on an Island. This movie is really just a masterpiece. And it's crazy because M. Night's first 3 movies, in my mind, are masterpieces. And after seeing Split, I feel like he's back. Split to me is as good as his first few movies. And I'm hoping he maintains that trajectory. So anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on Unbreakable? Looking forward to hearing them. Also, make sure you become a member of our Killer Flicks group where we talk horror all day, every day. If you look down below, you can see all my social media links. If you like what I'm doing, please click that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and Drumdum out.